Did you know 1 in 6 children face some kind of mental health concern each year? And help is too often in short supply, especially in rural parts of Idaho. This Thursday, September 26th, Boise State Public Radio is holding a special event in Marsing to talk about rural mental health issues, and we'd like to invite you to come, especially if you or someone you know lives or works in Owyhee or Canyon counties. The event is free and open to the public, and dinner will be provided. So meet us at Marsing High School this Thursday, September 26th from 6 to 8 p.m. for an important panel conversation on building connections between teens, families, and their support networks. Find event details at boisestatepublicradio.org/events.
From Boise State Public Radio, this is The Connector, Idaho's Daily News. Good morning. I'm George Prentice. Today we've got some good news on the fire watch. We've got the latest job numbers for Idaho. And with the election quickly approaching, we've got news regarding campaign donations for Proposition 1. That's the issue concerning open primaries, which will be on the ballot. It is Monday, September 23rd, and here are today's stories. We are counting down the days to the election. In Ada County, election officials tell us they're expecting a possible turnout of 80 to 90%. Because of that, the Boise School Board of Trustees later today will consider making Tuesday, November 5th, a non-school day. That to accommodate the influx of voters at polling places, many of which are schools. Now to what is on the ballot. The campaign to eliminate partisan primaries and implement ranked choice voting in Idaho has amassed more than $1.1 million in campaign donations. James Dawson reports.
Campaign finance data show the majority of money raised by Idahoans for open primaries comes from donors within the state. More than 2/3 of that $1.1 million comes from companies, trusts, or political action committees. That includes big donations from the election reform PAC Unite America, Reclaim Idaho, and the charitable foundation linked to the founder of Northwest River Supplies in Moscow. Idahoans for Open Primaries hasn't spent much just yet. It has about $1 million in reserve as of Friday. Only 2 groups have spent money to oppose Proposition 1 so far. A PAC called Republicans for Idaho has paid $86,000 for billboards to defeat the measure. Republicans for Idaho is run by 2 employees at Melaleuca and lists the company's Idaho Falls headquarters as its address. Melaleuca is owned by the state's richest man and notable Republican operator Frank Vandersloot. James Dawson, Boise State Public Radio News.
On the fire watch, firefighters across the region are starting another week on the lines, but the news is considerably better than just a couple of weeks ago. For example, the lava fire, which ended up merging with a boulder fire, is now reduced to the point where evacuation orders in Gem County were lifted, and the Boise and Payette National Forests have reduced some of their fire closures. Mark Jamison is the new operations chief on the scene.
They're continuing their structure protection activities, checking there's hose lays and pumps and sprinklers set up around the structures, making sure everything's good on that, keeping everything in check. Fire behavior has been minimal, but as it gets drier and a little windier every day, we're keeping a close eye on things.
Now over to the Wapiti fire. State Highway 21 has reopened between Lowman and Stanley, and here we're listening to crews removing some of the barriers. And remembering that firefighting equipment is still coming and going in the area, and some traffic will need to be guided by a pilot car, and the speed limit there has been temporarily reduced as well. A federal commission released dozens of recommendations for a, quote, comprehensive policy change to address the wildfire crisis. And now a member of that commission tells our Murphy Woodhouse that many of those recommendations are now on a possible path to becoming the law of the land.
The Commission report is a frank and sweeping overview of that crisis. It contains nearly 150 consensus recommendations. They came from a diverse group of researchers, public officials, land managers, tribal representatives, and others. They touch on everything from making homes and other structures more resilient to wildfires, dramatically expanding the use of prescribed fire, building and adequately paying a workforce that's up to the enormous challenge, and other key topics. Tyson Bertoni-Riggs was a staff co-lead on the Commission and was in Boise recently for a policy forum.
At last count, we think something like 50% of the recommendations have either been addressed in part or in whole in either introduced or draft legislation. Obviously, that's not the same thing as something passing, but I am optimistic.
He pointed to the fact that many legislative efforts have been bipartisan as a reason for that optimism. For the Mountain West News Bureau, I'm Murphy Woodhouse.
Idaho has new job numbers. The number of unemployed Idahoans went up in August, but so did the size of the workforce. So bottom line, the unemployment rate held steady at 3.5%. Here's the good news. Improvement in order in entertainment and recreation, healthcare, social services, and the construction job sectors. That said, there was a decrease in jobs in food services, federal government jobs, transportation, and warehousing. The highest unemployment rates were in Clearwater, Adams, and Shoshone counties. The lowest unemployment was reported in Madison, Teton, and Gooding counties. In the city of Boise, the unemployment rate, 3.4%, a bit better than the state average. And that is today's episode of The Connector. I'm George Prentice. We'll see you back here Tuesday. To stay in touch with the news between now and then, check out BoiseStatePublicRadio.org or download the free Boise State Public Radio app. And thanks for listening.